Hello, my name is Maria Davidova, and I will be talking about the designing sustainability with all, or co-designing sustainability with all, and not for all. And I will be discussing what is the difference from the modernist approach designing for, whilst now we are trying to design with. So this discussion comes from the newly ratified design field called Systemic Approach to Architectural Performance. The systemic approach to architectural performance is focusing on landscape, social and cultural ecology in a built environment or cultural landscape for co-living performance. It fights for the shift from Anthropocene towards biodiversity and climate change adaptation. And it is using holistic approach, and the place where it is happening, which is the most important, is a real life and real time co-design laboratory. That means that we are not discussing the design product that would be produced and the design process would end, but we would discuss that the design is actually the process, and we design the process of designing. The real life redesign and co-design is occurring in different types. It can appear in a speculative co-design and redesign, which would be more traditional way of thinking. You speculate, you design, and you use different tools for that. Then you come up with intervention within the landscape, and that intervention is co-designed and redesigned by its environment and by the factors occurring around. Then you can broaden this through inviting different agents to take part, so you speed up the process for rapid learning through the interaction. And of course, the feedback loop, co-design and redesign, is the one that is not speed up. This is what you are observing over time and mapping, and then you get back to speculative process and interventions and change these things over time. Then you get to DIY process, which means that you offer your designs for co-design and redesign by different users, so they generate new iterations of your work through local specific or user specific or whatever specific data they have, as much as they want. So when we get to speculative co-design and redesign, this would be gigamapping. Gigamapping occurs in the rich design research space that was defined by Burgers and Watson. We mix different medias, which would be digital and model making, analog, physical, prototyping. We would match this over different stakeholders, over different co-designers, and actually change the settings based on the different. So you can see this is digital model making, which uses different analyses. This is very speculative because in real life it always occurs different than what you speculate. Digital analysis, this would be model making for conceptual sketching and for understanding each other's over the gigabyte. This would be planning for prototyping. You actually do the strategies, how you build type, then you build it, and then you interact with real life. The other example that would be with multiple stakeholders in a local environment. We would map, digitalize, get a digital drawing, prototyping, and then build it in public. Once you get there, then you actually deal with the real intervention, which is interaction with the real life environment. This screen reacts to relative humidity and temperature, so it is warping when it's dry and hot weather, whilst it is closing when it's high humidity and low temperature. And the algae living on that is co-designing its performance, so it sucks the moisture when occurring the warping, or it is actually preventing warp when the humidity is high, so it's not warping the other. The moisture content of the wood is 10% difference, as you can see. This would be example of other intervention being the insect hotel, which is making accommodation for insects. In the same time, it's fast food restaurant for birds and bats in the location. It's changing over time, doing accommodation as well, and performance has changed over. This would be tree house that you can accommodate during the weekends. Otherwise, it's inhabited by moss, and the moss is gaining the moisture content from the wood hygroscopicity, whilst you are getting actually very comfortable bed when you accommodate yourself there for a week. You can broaden this experience through interacting with other people, so you invite people to discuss with you. You learn, so very often your design gets a different meaning. If you invite people from different disciplines, so suddenly seeing the dancer, you understand your design different way through tacit knowledge, which you wouldn't really have when you think of the design itself at the first point. This would be a landscape architect who picked up the space in the middle of the pavilion, saying that this is the best climate where she feels comfortable, and she would discuss the beautiful gardens in relation to the park. This dancer says what it means. You don't need to use words when discussing that. You understand, and you could not use how to explain this. This is the same. And this black beret really much shows you how to take on the opportunistic use of your work, and it has actually very important meaning, because within the cities the birds don't have place to sit or nests, because people would prevent that, and the ecosystem would die of exhaustion, so you actually have to create those places for the other species. This is the other interpretation of performing artists relating to the problem system. Seed bombing with blossoming species, getting generative agenda into the ecosystem, so you feed the beetles in the insect hotels, and then those are the food for the birds and bats, so you interact with the ecosystem. The AR VR game where you explain to people what is going on and get them, or sometimes they just need a standby comedy to get a hack. Then you are receiving feedback loops through those co-designs and redesigns. So, for instance, with this screen, you would see that and observe and map how it is reacting with. This prototype built 2 years later shows that the joinery didn't work as well as expected, so it has to be redesigned. Or sometimes you have to actually uh, fix the problems. This is okay as long as you are fair with that. Sometimes things need fixtures and you need to map them and realize the beauty of. You see the beauty of the hygroscopicity. You have these beautiful wetness mappings, which you have to expect, and it is good to see, and you see the warping in that and map that. This can also occur. This means there was a very stubborn gardener who was watering the pavilion on one side, and from the other side it was receiving a lot of heat and drought climate, so the pavilion just collapsed and it had to be fixed. It's lesson learned. Sometimes you tell to people you cannot do that and they still do that, and you might get to trouble. So it's good. This is more pleasant experience when of aging with the insect hotel that doesn't actually receive that. And this is something where the mapping of development takes place. This is traditional architecture. You can see how those buildings developed over time because they were redesigned and co-designed over generations. So you can see that those semi-interior spaces which you see here actually developed after 100 years the initial structure was built, and it is based by lesson learned. People needed more comfortable climates and more spaces for work. You can see that here with more open. This would be in Cappadocia when the first Christian culture would come, and they would be hiding in the caves, so they would build the cave structures, whilst afterwards the Muslim culture came and they would build those terraces on top of that, and the caves would be used in the winter and in the summer when you get extreme temperatures, whilst when you get mild temperatures in autumn or spring, they would use those terraces for comfortable climate. This is how it developed with co-living with birds, which would actually generate fertilizers for those. And now we get to the co-design and redesign to do it yourself. And this is a very important extra layer where we would learn that we have to engrave QR codes into our prototypes. Would actually, this is the example when we learned that. We didn't do that initially, but we would be actually tagged in different media and asked what the hell is that. So we would attach the QR code to our recipes, how to do the things yourself. How you do that, you could download the parametric code, change the parameters, you would be explained what the parameters refer to, and afterwards you could adapt it to local environmental settings and local community. So we would gain new iterations of our initial design. And then we would interact with the things like Maker Faire that would be otherwise sort of pointless in sense of making prototypes because it would be removed. But actually giving the QR code to makers. It has a generative agent. So starting to conclude, all of this is occurring in a real-life co-design laboratory that is co-designing sustainability with all, not for all. And it is done as an active agency that is co-performing in a real life. And this real-life co-design laboratory is co-created in real time across overall real-life environment, means overall ecosystem, and it is done by both living and non-living, biotic and abiotic agents. That leads to shift towards post-Anthropocene. However, this post-Anthropocene cannot be reached otherwise than through human engagement, because you cannot reach social justice without environmental justice, and vice versa. Thank you.